The 1952 UFO flap, a surge in sightings over Washington, D.C. In the summer of 1952, Washington, D.C. became the focal point of one of the most significant and widely publicized UFO phenomena in history. From July 12 to 29, a series of unidentified flying object sightings were reported over the nation's capital, later becoming known as the Washington flap, the Washington National Airport sightings, or the invasion of Washington. This event is often regarded as the climax of the 1952 UFO wave, which saw an unprecedented surge in UFO reports across the United States. Prior to 1952, the U.S. Air Force had recorded a total of 615 UFO reports over 4 years, but the summer of 1952 alone brought in more than 717 new reports. This sudden spike in sightings overwhelmed Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official program tasked with investigating UFO reports. Edward J. Ruppelt, the director of Project Blue Book, later recalled that during a 6-month period in 1952, over 16,000 items about flying saucers appeared in the nation's leading newspapers. The media played a crucial role in amplifying public interest and concern regarding UFOs. In April 1952, Life magazine published a groundbreaking article titled, "Have We Visitors from Space?" which seriously considered the possibility that UFO sightings might be caused by extraterrestrial spacecraft. This article, along with other media coverage, is believed to have contributed to the wave of reports that summer. By the time the sightings in Washington, D.C. occurred, the media frenzy was at its peak, with newspapers across the country featuring headlines about flying saucers and mysterious objects in the sky. The Washington sightings and military response. The most notable sightings during the Washington flap occurred on the nights of July 19 and July 26, 1952. On the evening of July 19, Edward Nugent, an air traffic controller at Washington National Airport, detected 7 unidentified objects on his radar. These objects were located 15 miles south-southwest of the city and were not following any known flight paths. Nugent's superior, Harry Barnes, who was a senior air traffic controller, observed the objects and later described their movements as completely radical compared to those of ordinary aircraft. The situation grew more perplexing as additional radar operators confirmed the sightings, and controllers in the radar-equipped control tower at National Airport also reported seeing unidentified blips on their screens. Moreover, a hovering bright light was spotted in the sky, which then accelerated away at incredible speed. As more objects appeared on radar, including near the White House and the U.S. Capitol, Barnes contacted Andrews Air Force Base, located 10 miles from National Airport. Initially, Andrews reported no unusual activity, but shortly after, an airman at the base observed an orange ball of fire in the sky, which moved at an unbelievable speed. Throughout the night, multiple witnesses, including military personnel and commercial pilots, reported seeing strange lights and objects in the sky. S.C. Pierman, a Capital Airlines pilot, observed 6 white, tailless, fast-moving lights over a 14-minute period while he waited for takeoff clearance on the runway. Each sighting, he reported, coincided with a radar blip that was tracked near his plane. The sightings continued until 3 a.m. when 2 U.S. Air Force F-94 Starfire jet fighters were scrambled from Newcastle Air Force Base in Delaware to intercept the objects. However, as the jets approached, the objects vanished from radar, only to reappear once the jets left the area. The objects were last detected by radar at 5:30 a.m., leaving behind no physical evidence other than the radar readings and eyewitness accounts. The following weekend, on the night of July 26, the mysterious sightings resumed. At 8:15 p.m., a pilot and stewardess on a National Airlines flight into Washington observed lights above their plane. Within minutes, radar centers at both National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base were tracking more unknown objects. This time, the sightings were even more intense, with radar operators detecting objects in every sector. At times, these objects moved slowly, while at other times they reversed direction and sped across the radar scope at speeds calculated to be as high as 7,000 miles per hour. 2 F-94 Starfire jets were once again scrambled to intercept the objects. While one pilot saw nothing, the other, Lieutenant William Patterson, reported seeing 4 white glows that he attempted to chase. Despite reaching maximum speed, Patterson could not overtake the objects, which seemed to effortlessly evade his pursuit. At one point, Patterson radioed ground control, saying, "I see them now, and they're all around me." "What should I do?" The response from the ground was silence. Nobody knew what to tell him. As on the previous weekend, the sightings and radar returns continued into the early hours of July 27, before finally disappearing at sunrise. The events of these 2 nights captured the attention of the highest levels of government and military leadership, leading to a significant reaction from the White House and the U.S. Air Force. Government reaction and the aftermath. The unprecedented nature of the Washington flap and the sheer number of sightings over the nation's capital led to widespread public concern and intense media coverage. The sightings of July 26 to 27 made front-page headlines across the country, and even President Harry Truman became involved. Truman's Air Force aide contacted Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, head of Project Blue Book, seeking an explanation for the sightings. Ruppelt suggested that the radar blips might have been caused by a temperature inversion, a meteorological phenomenon where a layer of warm air traps cooler air below, potentially bending radar signals and creating false targets. However, this explanation was provided before Ruppelt had the opportunity to conduct a thorough investigation. The U.S. Air Force, eager to calm public fears, held a major press conference on July 29, 1952, led by Major General John A. Sanford, the USAF Director of Intelligence, and Major General Roger M. Ramey, the USAF Director of Operations. This press conference was the largest held at the Pentagon since World War II, reflecting the level of public and governmental interest in the sightings. In his opening remarks, General Sanford acknowledged that a small percentage of UFO reports had been made by credible observers who had witnessed relatively incredible things. However, he stated that the visual sightings over Washington could likely be explained by misidentified natural phenomena, such as stars or meteors, and that the radar blips were likely caused by temperature inversions. He reassured the public that these sightings did not pose any threat to national security. Despite the official explanation, skepticism remained. Many witnesses, including radar operators and pilots, continued to insist that what they had observed could not be easily dismissed as natural phenomena. For instance, Howard Coughlin, a radar controller at Washington National Airport, was adamant that he had seen an object both on the radar screen and with his own eyes, stating that it was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Additionally, a crew member of a B-25 bomber, which had been flying over Washington during the July 26 to 27 sightings, reported that the aircraft's radar had detected targets that were later identified as the Wilson Line steamboat trip to Mount Vernon, further complicating the Air Force's explanations. The high number of UFO reports in 1952, particularly those in Washington, D.C., also alarmed the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. The CIA feared that an enemy nation could exploit the public's fascination with UFOs to cause mass panic and launch a surprise attack. This concern led to the establishment of the Robertson Panel in January 1953. Chaired by physicist Howard P. Robertson, the panel included prominent scientists who reviewed the best UFO cases collected by Project Blue Book. The panel ultimately dismissed nearly all of the cases as being explainable by conventional means and recommended that the Air Force spend less time analyzing UFO reports and more time publicly debunking them. The panel's recommendations led to a shift in how the Air Force and Project Blue Book handled UFO sightings, with unsolved cases rarely being publicized. The Washington flap of 1952 remains one of the most significant UFO events in history, not only because of the sheer number of sightings, but also because of the level of government attention and the subsequent impact on UFO investigations. While the official explanations provided by the Air Force and the CIA may have satisfied some, they left many questions unanswered and fueled ongoing speculation and debate about the nature of these sightings. The incident serves as a pivotal moment in the history of UFO investigations and continues to be a reference point for discussions about unidentified aerial phenomena and the government's response to them.